Welcome to qnawire.
This is all variations of the Pythagorean theorem, which I'm going to write as c squared equals a squared plus b squared, where c is the hypotenuse, which you recognize away from the right angle. So in number 1, 10 squared would be equal to x squared plus 8 squared. So x squared would be equal to 10 squared plus 10 squared minus 8 squared. And then you would square root to solve for x. So the square root of 10 squared minus 8 squared is 6. In number 2, the hypotenuse is x, so x squared equals 9 squared plus 12 squared. So x would equal the square root of 9 squared plus 12 squared. And the square root of 9 squared plus 12 squared is 15. Identify the hypotenuse. 5, so 5 squared equals x squared plus 3 squared. So I'm going to do this over here. Subtract 3 squared and then square root the square root of 5 squared minus 3 squared is 4. And number 4, the hypotenuse is 15.9. So 15.9 squared equals x squared plus 14 squared. So subtract 14 squared to both sides and then square root the square root of 15.9 squared minus 14 squared is 7. It says round to the nearest tenth. So one decimal place, 7.5. Number 5, the hypotenuse is x, so x squared equals 5.1 squared plus 6.8 squared. Solve for x by square rooting both sides. So the square root of 5.1 squared plus 6.8 squared, or 8.5. The hypotenuse is 13.1, so 13.1 squared equals x squared plus 4.3 squared. So subtract 4.3 squared to both sides, and then square root both sides, and you got x. So the square root of 13.1 squared minus 4.3 squared, or 12.4 to the nearest tenth. You could do Pythagorean theorem to find length as well. Make a right triangle out of it, and you got leg lengths of 2 and 4. So x squared equals, because that would be the hypotenuse, the distance, 2 squared plus 4 squared. Solve for x by taking the square root of both sides. So it's the square root of 2 squared plus 4 squared, which is 4.5 to the nearest tenth. Make a right triangle, 2 and 6. So the hypotenuse, what we want to find the distance, squared is equal to 2 squared plus 6 squared. Square root both sides. The square root of 2 squared plus 6 squared is 6.3. We don't need a picture for this. The distance squared is equal to the difference between your x's, between a -2 and a 5, is 7 units. And the difference between your y coordinates is 8 units. So the distance between those 2 points is the square root of 7 squared plus 8 squared, which is 10.6. Using the Pythagorean theorem, the distance is the hypotenuse connecting the points. The a and the b is the difference between your x coordinates. Between a +6 and a -7 is 13. between a -6 and a +4 is 10. So the distance between them is the square root of 13 squared plus 10 squared, which is 16.4.